Hello, everyone. Today is such a special day because we can feel the presence, the blessings flowing from all of our line of masters. We can feel the presence of our Guru very near and very dear, and very strong and very powerful. And on this day, it is a reminder that Master, he lived on this earth, as all avatars have, for a limited amount of time. But his mission, his blessings, his grace, like every great master, live on forever. And it's available to all those who are in tune with that ray, with that vibration that he brought. As Master said, to those who think me near, I will be near. And that word, to think of him near, it's a verb. It's a dynamic, magnetic draw inwardly, a bond that we create, that we keep strong with our Guru. That is openness, receptivity, enthusiasm, divine power, longing. All of these draw the master. In all of these ways, we think of him as being near. We draw him. And there were many times when Master, after he left his physical form, that people felt him, they saw him, they knew he was there. At the crypt where Master's body had been laid after his Mahasamadhi, there were some of the nuns standing nearby, weeping. And one of them was a little bit apart, and she heard Master say, "I'm not in there." And that is what we have to remember. Yes, he was in a human form, but he was never confined to that form. He appeared before an Indian disciple who couldn't make it to America at Master's Mahasamadhi time. The disciple said Master materialized in front of him and embraced him in India. He wasn't confined to body, he was spirit. He said, "I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells in this temple now but God." He was omnipresent, even while a part of him was in that form. He also appeared before an Ananda person, someone's parent who had visited Mrs. Sanchez while she was out walking at Ananda village. She saw him, and she wasn't a devotee, very devout Catholic though. And she said, "Do you come here often?" And he said, "I am always here." These are the words that the disciple has to embrace and live consciously every day of our lives. Master, even when he was in his body, as I said, he was omnipresent then. He knew people's thoughts. He could feel people's energies. There was one time he was walking and he could barely hold up that body. He was leaning on Swamiji, and he said, "It's hard for me at times to know which body to keep moving." And also, he said to one disciple, "You have a sour taste in your mouth." And they said, "Well, how do you know that, sir?" And he said, "I'm as much in your body as I am in my own." And to others, many others, "I know every thought you think." And he proved it over and over and over to the disciples. And it's not a past tense, it's for today, it's for every day that the Guru is there. It's like a curtain, it can be thick for some people, it could be a heavy drape, it could be dark, it could be lightweight, it could be see-through, depending on the consciousness of the disciple. And as we open ourselves through the teachings, our meditation, our seva, all the various things we do on this path, the techniques, chanting, satsang, then that veil, that curtain gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And Master, we can reach him, we can say, because he's always there. And as with Swamiji, Master, within his lifetime, had him doing so many things, and he didn't care how young, how inexperienced, how new. What he thought about and cared about was that attunement, the bond that he had with Swamiji. It wasn't a matter of time, how much time people were there with him. There was one woman who said, "Master, I don't feel you as much as the others do." He said, "If you shut the door, how can I come in?" The other, who had been there for about 12 years, he left, and Master told the disciples who were asking, "When will he come back?" Master said, "Never." He was never in. His heart, his consciousness was never open to the Guru. And these are the most important aspects of discipleship, that there is an open heart, open consciousness, a drawing in of the Master and his vibrations, his experience of God. What does the Guru have to give us? He has everything. If we have a small cup, that's all he can pour. If we're open vessels, then he can pour unlimited amounts into each one of us. So how do we do that? Well, the Master can give to the open disciple who's receptive and all the things I mentioned to be open. Then Master gives his thoughts, guidance, blessings flow. What's more important is when we do our part, as he said to the disciples, 25% of the path is your efforts. 25% I will give you lots of my good karma. 50% is God's grace. And so, as we do our part, the more important thing is the Guru gives God, the experience of God to the disciple. He pours that experience of Om, of the light, of the upliftment of the energy in the spine, the Kundalini, of the opening of the spiritual eye, of all these things that we've read and heard about in Master's books. We don't do those on our own. The Guru gives God. As we open through our receptivity, our practices, he pours the experience of God. So, how can we emulate, besides the openness and all to receive Master, how can we emulate the attitudes, the spirit that Master had to be able to uplift ourselves, to do our 25%? As one disciple said to Master, when he asked him to do a particular thing, "You can do it, sir. We can't do it. I can't do it. And I need your blessing." And Master said, "My blessing's there. God's blessing's there. Your blessing is needed." And so, how can we add our blessing to that of God and the Master's? If we look at Master's life, it's such a beautiful, beautiful life, so demonstrative of how to be a disciple. I remember once, many years back, we were talking on one of Swamiji's birthdays of all the things he had done in his life for Master in education and writing all the books and the music and his talks and communities and all the thousands of lectures. And Swamiji's response was, "None of that matters. I want to be a good disciple. I want, when I meet Master, for him to be pleased with my discipleship." And so one of the ways that is pleasing to him that we could work on is with energy, with enthusiasm, to put that into everything that we do. He so showed that in every aspect of his life. In his lectures in America, when he would run onto the platform and have everybody awake and ready, in every aspect of his life, that wonderful quality of divine enthusiasm and energy and joy just radiated from him. And we all know many of the stories of that, of how he was with Swamiji, and he asked Swamiji, "Well, how are you, Walter?" And Swamiji said, "Well, Master," and Master said, "That's good." He was so positive. When in Encinitas, when the temple, Golden Lotus Temple there, because of erosion, just slid further and further down the hillside there until it fell into the Pacific Ocean. Master's words were incredible, really. He said, "It's the best thing that ever happened to me." And why? Because in those next years, and he didn't have many years left after that, those next years, many other centers he founded. Much of his work was completed in those following years. And so his enthusiasm, his positivity were just contagious. There was a time when he was wanting to tour in America, and he didn't have much money. He just said, "I'm just going to get the money to do it." Someone wrote him a large check, someone who didn't know him at all. And he was just walking in the streets of San Francisco. And this man stopped him and said, I want to help your work. And Master said, you don't even know who I am. And he said, yes, I do. From your eyes. What a beautiful response, from your eyes. Meaning the look, the eyes of God, the joy of God, the enthusiasm of God from your eyes. And as we work with spirit, with positivity, using the affirmations, superconscious living exercises, energization, we get more and more invigorated, more and more of Master's vibrations come to us. And then everything that's needed begins to come, friends, things that we need, finances, circumstances change, opportunities come in our life. This is pleasing to Master. Not to sit and say, oh, I don't know how it's going to work, how will it work out, but to put out 1,000% energy to make things work. They had to plant tomatoes on the hillside at Mount Washington. They didn't have food, but they just planted those tomatoes. They made tomato soup, tomato everything, just to keep the energy high. So energy. The second is compassion. Master was so compassionate. He cared. He loved others. The love of God was flowing through him. I think about our work in Brindaban and how so many of you have gone there and shared your love, shared your energy, shared your heart's feelings with all of the people that we serve there. It's the social arm of Ananda. Swamiji wanted us to be here in India serving people, caring for people. He said it's not enough to just teach people how to meditate. You have to give God's love and joy to people. And I was remembering the beautiful story of Master with, was driving one day and he stopped, had the driver stop, and he just went into what seemed like a random store. And he began to just pick up objects and put them in a basket that he was carrying. And God had him stop there. And he went and the lady there who owned the store, she added up all the things they had bought. And then she just burst out in tears, saying, I very badly needed this amount today to pay for something. And he didn't say anything, he just left. Master would walk up and down in front of the bars in Los Angeles where people were drinking and inebriated, just to draw them away from that vibration. There was a man who came to him he looked, he had long hair, and Master must have had on a robe that day. And a man came up to him and said, oh, hello there, Jesus Christ. And Master didn't put the man off. He didn't push him away or anything in any way. And the man, he just gave him this deep look from his eyes. And the man said, hey, what you been drinking? And Master said, well, it has a lot of kick in it. And he left the man sobered. His vibration was so strong and so powerful. And he had deep compassion for that man. I don't know if he drank again, but let's hope he didn't, from Master's vibration. So the compassionate heart is something that he showed all the disciples. He said, I go through your lives every night. I go through each one of you. And he knew the difficulties that people had, but he still opened the door for them to come. Those who he had that bond with. There was another beautiful example of Swam Master's uh, life, his attitudes, um, his qualities, I should say. And that was one was love, that he was deeply, deeply in love with God. He stayed up all night long as a child, just calling to Krishna. You may remember the story. He and his little friend were there, and Master was a young boy at the time, but he was so in love. He was in love with Ma Kali as well, and he just prayed to her and meditated deeply on Kali and in Krishna as well. His little friend fell asleep, and Master had a divine vision. And he saw Krishna. And he says, he's here, he's here. And the little friend says, no, I'm sleeping, don't bother me. And I don't see anybody. And Master struck him, I think it was on the chest. And then he says, I see him too. I see him. And that love that he had for God drew many a master, many a saint. One disciple said, well, Master, who was that you spoke to? I saw you on the bluff the other day talking to some saint. And he said, who? Who do you mean? So many came to me. Isn't it wonderful? So many. And he would sit on his bed and one day he had a vision. He said, I wanted to know about the life of Ramakrishna. And I just asked him, and he sat there and he told me, and you know, the same with Jesus. He had many visions of Jesus. He said, oh, we just, through vibration, I knew his thoughts and his life. And he had that love for people as well. It was such a loving vibration. As you just heard on this talk, when Master passed away, there's a tear that came from one of his eyes just to say, I love you. One of the disciples would always have that thought in his mind, Master, I love you. I love you. That was his mantra. And he didn't say anything about it, but one day Master was walking by him. He says, oh, yes, I love you too. And he knew the disciple's heart. And one time a disciple had written, he had left a gift for Master at his door, and he forgot to put his name on it. He thought, oh gosh, I've forgotten. And the Master opened the package. There was no name on it. He calls the disciple, thank you for your gift. He just always had his heart open to flow, that God's love was pouring into him and out to others. And it's so sweet, all the stories from stories of Mukunda. Master, when he was a young boy, he wrote a letter to God, and he gave it to the postman, and he says it said to God in heaven, and that's just this. His spirit was so innocent, and no, he didn't get a response. He was asking the postman. He asked his parents, and they said, "Well, no letter came for you, Mukunda," and then he went directly to God, and he said, "How come you didn't answer my letter?" And then in a vision and letters of light, he saw the divine response. He had many visions of Divine Mother, many of the great masters, because of the deep love in his heart. Let us remember Master's wonderful promise to those who think me near, I will be near. And let us remember, as his disciples, he came for a world mission. Yes, of course. But he also came for each of the disciples to draw them closer and closer to the realization that what he had, we must achieve. I'll end with the beautiful story of Oliver Black, who was a very close disciple of Master. And Master, he just wanted to show him who he was, who Oliver Black was, and Master's love for him. One day he asked him to go out for a drive with him. I think they were in Encinitas, and it was pouring down rain. And so a monk came to Mr. Black's door and said, Master wants to go with you out for a drive. And he thought, a drive? It's pouring down. Why would he want to go for a drive? He says, well, I guess he knows what he's doing. So he went out, he put his coat on, he opened the door, he walked out of his door, and then he walked out of the door of the ashram, and the sun was out, the ground was dry, the car was dry, everything around him was dry. The master was standing just a little near the car, and he says, for you, Oliver. And I think in our lives, we have to remember, yes, Master came for a mission that's for the whole world, but he came for each one of us. He's saying, for you, I have come. I'll read now another poem to close our satsang from Songs of the Soul. This is Master's words when I take the vow of silence. You might close your eyes and feel him talking to you through these words. When I take the vow of silence to remain enlocked with my beloved, in the arms of his everywhereness, I shall be busy listening to his symphony of creation's bliss songs and beholding hidden wondrous visions. Yet I shall not be oblivious of you all. I shall mutely watch you walking over me in the fresh grass blades and seeing me in my living leafy presence. I shall behold you with mothering tenderness through every crimson blossom that wears a blush of love to bring you delight. I shall caress you with the enfolding breeze to relieve your worries and fears and enwrap you in sun warmth. When the chill of delusive loneliness strays into your heart, when you gaze at the ocean, you are looking right at me, united with my beloved on the altar of the horizon, sky canopied with silver rays over the azure, wavy, hazy sanctuary. I shall not speak except through your reason, nor scold except through your conscience. I shall persuade only through your love and your heart's longing to seek the beloved only. I shall tempt you, but with the soul temptation to enjoy the beloved's love alone. Forget me if you will, but not my beloved. Remembering him, you cannot forget me. Let's listen now to Master chanting Om to close the ceremony. Let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Laidi Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, beloved Guru Deva, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we bow at thy feet. Beloved Master, guide our efforts as we seek thee through thy teachings, thy technique of Kriya Yoga, our practices, and your grace. We want to know thee in this lifetime. Bless our efforts. We bow again and again at thy holy feet. Om Shanti Shanti.